we have this nervous system, and our nervous system is made up of two main components. On one side, we have the sympathetic. And the sympathetic is what you may have heard being called it's kind of our fight, flight, freeze. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have our parasympathetic, which is the more rest, digest, calm. And they're really meant to be set up like this yin and yang. They're really meant to balance each other out because we do need both, right? There are moments in our life where we do experience stress. And like you said at the beginning, Mikhail, that sense of tightening up the sphincter, like you almost see an accident in front of you, or you're watching something on TV and your body just responds, right? But then it's also built, our body, to move past that and return to a state of relaxation, of homeostasis, where we're ready for the next time we're asked to be ready, all right? So here's what happens is that, thousands of years ago, how this nervous system worked was when you heard rustling in the bushes or that spidey sense turned on, your sympathetic nervous system would wake up, okay? It would release stress hormones in the brain, cortisol, adrenaline. Your blood would push blood to your extremities, your hands and feet, because you probably had to physically get out of that place very quickly. Your thirst mechanism was numbed, your appetite was numbed, because the main goal was just to get you away from that danger. And then once you were away from the danger, the parasympathetic kicked in, your blood pressure returned to normal, your heart rate returned to normal, you were thirsty again, you were hungry again, and on you went. The reality is that today we are in this perpetual state of running from the saber-toothed tiger, but it's not the saber-toothed tiger. It's being overwhelmed, being overworked, feeling like you're stuck in a relationship that you just don't know how to get out of or is not serving you. You have your kids are offering you challenges that you're not sure how to navigate. There's all of these things that make the body feel like they are running away from the saber-toothed tiger every single day for days and weeks and months. And that cortisol, that adrenaline is pumping constantly. And what happens is the body believes that you are in a state of just being unsafe. And so everything tightens up, the pelvic floor. We see posture start to change. We see breathing get more shallow. And so that's really where my pain stemmed from, was when it was digestive, it impacted the whole body. And that's why I just could not get out of that cycle. And 11 medications also didn't help me get out of that cycle.
Wow. Well, there's something else that I wanted to add when you're in that sympathetic part of our nervous system. You don't digest food because, again, you got to reserve the energy to get all those nutrients to your muscle. Your immunity system is shut off because why do you need to protect yourself from a disease when you're in the battle right here? Your brain, all the oxygen that was going to your brain, it is now, being diverted to your muscles. So that's why we get that fogginess where we feel like we're kind of can't think to the next step and we're losing our focus and concentration. So there's so many things that are happening to our state of being when we're in this, I call it the state of alert, the state of emergency. And so you're saying is that you started to get into your movement, you started to get into that mindlessness, and that allowed you to get more into that parasympathetic nervous part of our nervous system.
And that's exactly it. I saw Madonna on the cover of a fitness magazine in the fall of 1999. And that's where I first heard of Pilates. And when I read the article, it was very, I wasn't connecting with it because in my brain, that really traditional fitness, leave a puddle of sweat on the floor, lift weights until you can't even wash your hair the next morning because your arms are so sore. That mindset didn't connect or didn't align with what I was reading about this form of movement that kind of looked like yoga, kind of looked like Tai Chi, where it focused on breathing and spinal movement and alignment of bones and joints so that muscles could learn what their job truly was. And I was like, okay, what is this? But I wanted to go and give it a try. And in my first class, and I told the story at the webinar that you were at, I almost, if I wasn't in the front row center, I would have rolled up my mat and I would have ran out of that room, because it was, I think, the first time in my pain journey that I realized that I did not understand my body at all. I couldn't even breathe through my nose and exhale out of my mouth like my instructor was. And my brain was so confused, because isn't breath something that we should just innately know how to do? And it was in those moments that I realized that it is not a given. And it's not the fact that we're breathing. It's what is the quality of that breath in those moments of breathing that really truly plugs into the health of our entire body.
Well, another aha moment was that quote by Joseph Pilates. And I would like for you to say it, because it really rung a bell when I heard it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joseph Pilates, one of my favorite quotes from him is, breath is the first and the last act of life. And somewhere in the middle, we forget how to do it. And it's true, we do. We take it for granted. But like I said, not all breath is created equally. If we learn how to take this beautiful diaphragmatic breath, to utilize the diaphragm as our main muscle of respiration, that quality of breath is very different than that shallow collarbone kind of strained breathing that so many of us do and live in that world. There's a huge difference.
Yes, it surely is. It's that shallow chest breathing. What I realize is that when we're in that state of emergency, that state of alert, there's certain things that our body does. And one of the things that it does, it takes that shallow, fast breath and up here in the chest. And we're not even focused on the diaphragm. But the opposite also is true. So if we slow the breathing down instead of speeding it up, and we use our diaphragm, we start to affect our heart. It slows down. We start to restore our mood. We get more energy. We get back into the parasympathetic part of our nervous system. I mean, it goes on and on. But what I realized, and I remember when somebody first told me to use my diaphragm was almost in a state of atrophy.
Well, and it's that classic statement about the body, use it or lose it. So there is so much connection between, the messaging of the nerves from our brain to our muscles, that really, if we're not utilizing a certain part of the body is so smart. So let's just use this as an example. When we stop using our diaphragm as the main muscle of respiration, and so everybody, if you're watching this, you'll see right behind Mikhail, that dome-shaped muscle right behind him is the diaphragm, okay? And here's the thing. The body is so smart that if we don't use the diaphragm, it's not like the brain says, okay, don't breathe for him or don't breathe for her. The body's like, oh, okay, where else can we ask the breath to come from? And so we have these secondary breathing muscles in our neck. They're called the scalenes and the sternocleidomastoids. And so when the big dome of the diaphragm is not being asked to do its job, the brain just sends the breathing function right here into the neck. Now here's the little about that, is that these muscles already have a job. Their job is to hold this bowling ball up on the little wire known as the spine. So it's a pretty big job, right? We've all seen those bobblehead dolls. And so these little muscles are like, okay, we'll help out for a while, but then it becomes like a permanent job. And they're like, okay, wait, we're feeling kind of overworked. So do you know what happens is these muscles become extremely overused. They become tight and tense. We start to see them when they get tighter, the head comes forward like those little candy Pez dispenser, things that you can buy. And we now have a bigger problem because this bowling ball is not sitting beautifully in alignment on top of the spine in this gravity on our planet, the head is sitting forward of the spine, creating more stress and tension, collapsing more through the diaphragm, the rest of the core, including the pelvic floor, and it becomes this snowball rolling downhill that just gets more and more momentum. And we wake up one morning and think, when was the last time I didn't have a headache? Or when was the last time I didn't have neck tension? So this, the act of breath is perpetually, impacted by all these other systems in the body.